All right, welcome to Soul Awakening with Sandra. So we're going to start right in. I introduced myself, and I introduced myself as an individual who's gone through some of my dogmas. And dogmas, let me give you the definition, okay, so that you can go look it up in a dictionary on Google or wherever you find your definition for words. It's a set of principles or doctrines laid down by authority as to it being incontrovertibly true. Or it's a doctrine of belief of something that seems to be true. So I gave you the one and the two. You know, it happens in the dictionary. Or when Siri or Google give you the definition, they'll always give you two. So one of the dogmas that I had to address and call forward in me, I had to call this little mini me. Think of it as an avatar when you're playing a game. One of those little yous that has to come forward because it's in the background, in the shadows, holding on to a set of doctrine that does not serve you any longer. And that's what I had to do. It was a set of doctrines that I had growing up, and I had them since I was growing up in the Baptist church, and just, learned them, held on to them, heard the pastor speak of them quite some time, and listened to the men in the church bring this doctrine forward. And I'm not saying that they might have known better, but it was just a doctrine that they were raised on, and who knows, maybe mother and father were raised on, and generational kind of thing. But all I could do was be concerned about me because I couldn't go back and change anybody's past. I can't go back. I mean, I probably could if I wanted to go back generationally and do some real intense work. But my soul said that I had to do work on me because it's in the now that I had to change that language and bring that young me forward that was holding on to that doctrine and didn't know what to do with it. They were just there, and the doctrine was on repeat, and it was being used for my ego to keep me in check when I wanted to go out and venture and do things. So this dogma was that when you get married in the church, the man is the head of the household, yes. The man is the head of the religion. The household follows the man's religion. Okay. And then, if there's a rift in the household, husband and wife aren't getting together or working together or they're arguing, then they had to bring it to the church, and the church had to hear the man and the woman, and it was deemed that the woman had to concur with whatever the man was saying or generally putting forth about the household or about her attitude or about what she should do or shouldn't do. And the only time that she ever had any power, so to speak, is if he defiled the marriage bed. Now that's old terminology. That just means if he fucks around, then you have cause to maybe divorce, right? So taking into account that he may have been abusing her with either his words or his hand, he still had all the rights. Now, me, even as a little kid or teenager, I knew that something dropped the ball, right? Okay, that's one of the dogmas. And then attached to it, I got married when I was young. I got married and, I married my high school sweetheart. We were thinking we were going to live happily ever afterwards. Yeah, I can't even say that right anymore, but I laugh at it because he and I, we thought we were doing the right thing. We thought we were marrying our high school sweethearts. We thought that we were going to have these 4 kids and life was going to be happily ever after, based on how we grew up. He grew up in a household where he played with Tonka trucks and little boys got to do everything, and I grew up where I played with my brothers. I was allowed to go outside and throw a ball and hit the ball with the bat, but it was different outside of that home where the, boys did this and girls did that, right? So I just followed the rules, got married, and when things started to not go well, here's the kicker. Now, he was not a part of our church, so rules did not apply. But a different set of rules applied. Because now I'm deemed, you should have married somebody in your church. Right? You brought this on yourself. So these are dogmas, right? Okay, add another one onto that. Because they're all one big giant principle, right? They're just one big giant doctrine. So we'll add another one onto that. After I get divorced, then here's the next one. Oh, Sandra, you can't raise 3 children by yourself. You need a good man. You need a church-going man. So everybody's trying to set me up. And Sandy, you need an older man. You need somebody who's going to commit. You need somebody who's already got things done. Right? And, at first, I was busy trying to manage my kids, keeping them happy, trying to explain to them why mommy and daddy aren't together, and things are all up in the air, and here comes this doctrine, right? Now this mini me lived that until one day I just said, no, don't set me up anymore. And I stopped going to the church. Yes. I decided to, all those churches that I embarked on in my journey to check them out to see what was next or what was missing. Like I said in my introduction, I began to look again. And that's when I found something that was non-denominational, and I thought I fit a little bit better in. But let me tell you, what I didn't know, what no one told me, was that mini me, that little avatar, now moved back into the shadows of my subconscious, and got stuck there. Because I never, even though I said no to it, I never changed the story. Nobody told me I needed to change the story. I needed to delete that program and rewrite another program for my greater good and for the greater good of my children. Nobody told me. But it was a principle set up in my church. It became doctrine in my church by men who mainly ran the church. Right? Women were in the choir. Women were nurses to aid people when they fell out, speaking in tongues, or don't get me wrong, speaking in tongues is wonderful. Wonderful. It's the language of God. I finally understand that. But women were Sunday school teachers, but there wasn't a pastor. There wasn't a deacon that sat next to the pastor. But there was this doctrine that was handed down by men in the church. So dogmas are just doctrines that keep going and keep going like an ever-ready battery. So I did eventually have to call that me forward. And it took a while. It took a while. Because on top of that, I built my own dogma within me that layered on top of that, that I wasn't going to worry about finding a man to help me raise my kids. So when I dated people, I had a certain directive that I told my mind we needed. We needed men who weren't interested in getting married and having more kids. So I knew that they weren't going to be in it for the long haul. So I wrote my own dogma. Yes, you can do that. You don't know you do that. What happens is you have a certain thought, and over again, it's that thought. And as you think it, it comes to fruition, it manifests. And for me, when the relationship was over, I just had another thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And then that thought became my belief, and my belief became my truth. So yes, I was dating, and I was having a good time dating, and I got to know a lot of great people, but they weren't for the long haul, because my thought pattern was I wasn't going to have any of my children calling someone else dad that had another set of dogmas that were for our greater good, mine and my children. Right? So I created a, maybe we won't call that a dogma. Maybe we'll call that a story, a paradigm off of that dogma. So when I called that young, beautiful woman forward and said, you can let go of that now. You can release it. You can give it back to the one who is all of everything and all of nothing. And you can come along with me for another ride, another story. She came along for a story that I had written that served its purpose, but was not for my greater good, or the greater good of my children, or the greater good of really the guys that I was dating. Right? So you see what happens? You wake up in certain areas, and there are other areas, that I was still asleep in. And really in that area, not totally awake or conscious, but conscious enough to know that the question that I always ask, what more, always leads me down the path. It leads me either to the path of the dogma that's stale in my consciousness and needs to come forward, or it leads me to a path of truth that I want to say about what I want or not to the truth, to the thought that's going to yield a greater belief for the truth that I want to serve for myself and those that I am serving, and that included my children. So yeah, we do have to dig down into the dogmas that we're learning. They're not only in our church. They can be in spirituality too. They can be in friendships that you've had for a long time. They can be in schools and universities, and they could be in the political system. Dogmas are everywhere. Let me read that to you again. A dogma is a set of doctrine or principle laid down by an authority as inconvertibly true. So whoever your authority person is or group is, find out from within you if it's true. Your soul will let you know. As you're peeling back those layers of dogmas and half-truths and old stories and old paradigms that aren't serving you anymore. The way you know that they're not serving you is through your feelings. If you say that you would like to have something based on old dogmas and old truths or old stories or old paradigms that aren't serving you anymore, they don't feel good. The story that the universe manifests from them aren't quite right. And you'll go, I didn't ask for that. Because the story or the paradigm is changing for you. Now, it could be possible that you're not waking up in it. True. It could just be possible that you utilized the story that wasn't intricate enough, spelled out enough. It could be. But I think that it could very well be the dogma that is stale, or the story has been told too many times in that subconsciousness, and you hear the scratches and distortions in the old stories and the old paradigms from authorities that didn't know you as well as they thought they did. Right? For me, as I was growing up, always growing up, always being led to that question, what more? What don't I see that I should see? Who am I to be in the situation or the circumstance that is moving through and around me? What do I do now with a story that is no longer supporting my life? It's too stale. It's like stale bread. You can pull it out the package and you can hold it and it just crumbles because it's so old. It doesn't even have taste anymore. Or stale meat. Have you ever bought meat at the grocery store? Yeah? And opened it up and then smelled it and it just smelled rancid? Because what happened is you forgot to look at the expiration date. Expired by. That's the same thing as your dogma. That's the same thing as a paradigm that is shifting and crumbling. So that's just one. Really, I thought it was one, but it was like one gigantic one. Now, some of you men might be listening to me and saying, oh, she's just kind of like shitting on men. No, I'm not. Because if you really sit and think about it, that if you look at any religions that were 1950s, 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, and you went to that church and you looked at it, you'd see that it was biased. Not that it was wrong for that time, maybe. But everything expands, everything grows, everything changes, everything is revealed. So, as I've shared with you my dogma for now, think about yours. Just think about your dogma, whether it's church, whether it's spirituality, whether it's school, whether it's work, what doctrines or stories are being told by the authority that's telling them to you, and you think them and think them and think them, and then they become your belief, and then they become your story. And then ask yourself, is this dogma, is this old story, is this paradigm supporting me? Be willing to hear the answer. Once you hear the answer, be willing to ask, what must I do in midst of changing this dogma, changing this story? How do I find a thought that's going to support me and those that I serve? What thought is going to manifest within me, around me, for me, and those that I serve? Life is beautiful, wonderful. You have come to thrive, not just survive. Life has come to multiply itself within you. You are a spirit being having a human incarnation through all that you see and all that you say and all that you are. All that is moving around you. You get the choice. It's a free will choice. And your soul gets to tap into it because it's making a choice too. It's the law of one. We are all one. We are a we and we are an I. And the we is all that there is. It's all that there is. The presence that is never an absence in your now. So until next time, be blessed, be happy, have a grand rising day, sleep well, and rise wonderfully. Be happy.